Hey, welcome back to the Parc Fermé. Oh boy, you can see how this show's gonna go already. Yeah, this is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. So, whoa, wait a minute. I'm getting a call. I can't do that. I'm podcasting right now. Apologies, folks. It's a bit of a crazy. You could tell I am podcasting remote on being brought to you by this nice 13-inch MacBook. So apologies for that. I don't have all my normal kit in the studio and all that. And so apologies in advance for audio differences. However, we are here for podcast number 724, the 2021 FU. Did I say FU?
I think so. This. You were right when you called this is going to be something.
It is going to be something. Let me start that again. F1. I was thinking whoever was calling me, FU, man, leave me alone. Sorry about that. The F1 season preview. That's what we're going to talk about.
By the way, have you checked on your warranty for your car?
No.
Maybe you should have answered the phone because I'm pretty sure you're nearly out of warranty.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah. Yeah.
Hurry. Yeah.
Hurry. Yes. Yeah, we're here to review the 2021 F1 season preview. And of course, I'm joined by Paul Charsley. Before we get into the F1 season preview, though, I hope all of you are watching the 12 Hours of Sebring because, A, that's an epic race. It's a terrific race. But our friend here on the podcast, our very own Paul Charsley, and the Heart of Racing number 23 Aston Martin team that he is the sporting manager of, had a podium finish at the 12 Hour. Paul, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Here, let me do this. Yes. Very nice.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a heck of a race.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
It was a heck of a race for us. I know that, and I think it was a heck of a race for a lot of people. So yeah, it's a fantastic start to the season. And so it was weird because the 12 Hour was the last race of the season's proximity, but it's a whole different race here, and getting on the podium again was just phenomenal. It's a different year now, and I know it may seem weird, but I wasn't as ecstatic as I was about our podium last time because I think we've got more fish to fry, so to speak. Now this is our second year. We've got the championship in our eye view, race wins in our eye view. So this was kind of it was nearly, even the whole crew was like nearly, okay, job done. Okay, it's next race, right? And as it should be, you can't just sit there patting shelf on the back. You got to figure out what did we do wrong to not win the race, and that's what we're going to be doing this year.
Yeah,
no
it's a difference between looking as an also ran versus we're in this game for real and we're going for it.
Yeah, we're not lucking into wins. We're being competitive and we're leaving no stone unturned. So it's fantastic to be on the podium again. It's great to be competitive. We had a good Daytona. We had a great Sebring, and just we're just going to keep rolling on, man. I'm excited.
It's great. How did the Aston Martin perform?
It did great. I mean, it's not going to lie, it's technically a complicated car. Certainly dynamically, but I think we're getting to that sweet spot where it's going to really be competitive. I mean, a lot of these guys have had their cars and they've been fully sorted for a while, and we're the only Aston in the bunch, so we got no other data to draw from, so we're doing it all on our own. But I think we're gradually narrowing that window down where whenever we get to a track, we can be pretty competitive from the onset rather than trying to. Now, at least we've got a pool of data to run from last year as well, so it helps.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because you can't shake a stick without hitting a Porsche in that series. But as far as being the lone Aston Martin, it's not like you got spare parts up and down the paddock you can nab if you need them, or you're a lone wolf out there as an Aston Martin forging your own position.
Yeah, it's kind of nice though, being that it does make it harder, but it's kind of nice being the only one. And you got, as I said, the Porsches, the Lexus, you got all kinds of other makes that multiple cars on the grid. But being the only Aston, it's a good brand to be, and being the only one makes you even more excited. So representing.
Absolutely. Well, it's great. And also, folks, if you didn't listen to or catch on our YouTube channel,
Oh yeah.
be sure to check that out. Paul is doing a series of motorhome chats with the team, the Heart of Racing team. And this week on Saturday, he sent me an interview he did with Roman DeAngelis, a driver of the number 23. It's a great interview, and we posted it on our YouTube channel. And it was terrific, and made a podcast, a downshift podcast out of it. It was a great interview. Enjoyed, because obviously I haven't spent any time with Roman. I don't know much about him,
Yeah.
and it was great to hear his passion for motorsport and where it all came from. It was terrific.
Yeah, he's a really good kid. And I thought everyone, I know we're Formula One centric, but I think last time we had Darren Turner, who,
Yeah.
is a veteran sports car driver, and now we have Roman, who's just brand new to the series, basically. And that, we see that in Formula One too. We got the young kids coming in, we got the old sages still out there. So I think there's comparisons to be learned, and just see the different onset of being a young driver trying to prove yourself and work within, a sport that for the most part has a lot of maturity in it, with the technically, and with a lot of the other drivers, definitely in sports cars. So it's an interesting dynamic for him to jump into, but he does it so well. Yeah, I mean, it's not like his dad carries him around everywhere, right?
Yeah, right.
His dad sends him on his own. Yeah, you're racing the Spa, there you go. I'll drop you off at the airport. And it's all part of, and that's why he's such a mature young driver, and that you entrust a car like the Heart of Racing Aston Martin to him in all kinds of situations. We don't have any, you want to qualify, go Roman. You finish in the race and try and fight for the lead. He's a guy you wouldn't be worried about giving it a go. So
yeah, because you're putting a hell of a lot of kit in his hands.
Yeah, you are, and of course, I'm not liking, and Ian's his manager as well as, obviously his teammate, the team principal, and all that stuff. And yeah, he's getting quite an education.
Yeah, for sure. Bit like Yuki Tsunoda right now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
makes
great.
him stronger, though. Makes him stronger.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. All right. Well, let's get into the 2021 Formula One season and preview this and talk about what we think is going to happen. Let's just start up front real quick with the season itself. It's the longest in F1's 71-year history, with 23 races in total. The season starts effectively now and will not end until mid-December, December 12th, if you can imagine that.
Crazy.
Now, that is a heck of a lot of wear and tear on teams, some of whom are treating this season as a bit of a transition or throwaway season. And I kind of think of Haas, who's looking at this, not a lot of in-season development. Boy, you got to slog it out for 23 races, knowing you aren't really developing this car to really be a points, machine in 2021. That's a hard ask,
It is. I mean, you got to have, hopefully they're somehow telling the team what their bigger goal is, rather than just throwing away the season. We'll just tell you at the end of the year what we're going to do next, because it's tough for mechanics, for drivers, for anyone to be involved in a team that is just kind of okay with being mediocre and not really doing anything to change that. You have a bad car, and okay, well, let's throw everything at it, guys. It's like, you got a bad car, we're going to have a bad car. That's really tough. But as there may be a benefit that they're giving up a lot here to gain next year with the new rules. I don't know, but really tough mentally I think, as a whole team to deal with that function. They got 2 new drivers. Obviously, that's going to keep them busy, I would say, for a while. Yeah.
Better start making front wings.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Also, go ahead.
No, and I was just going on the long season. That is really long. I think it's too long. There's a few tracks, obviously, that we would be okay not seeing again, but just the pure number itself, I think, is pretty brutal. Especially with the new car coming the next year, that's going to make it really tough on the teams if you're working all the way through the middle of December to flip a car and be ready for preseason testing with a whole brand new concept Formula One car. But just myself, we do 11 races, doubling that. That's like a full-time gig away from home, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you've got the cost cap that's in play now, and
Yeah.
the wear and tear on just individuals in the team and being away from their families that much.
Yep.
It's a big ask. Also, keep your eye on Canada, Italy, and Brazil, as those are the locations to test the new sprint race concept. This race will be a third the distance of a normal race and will set the grid for Sunday's race. Will it work? I don't know. Time will tell. But those are the three tracks right now that they're talking about, maybe the location to do that.
Yeah. We haven't talked much about that though, have we?
No,
That whole cult. Yeah. I mean, it's going to work. It's whether you can accept it as a legitimate,
yes.
Way to set the grid, right? I think
Yeah,
it's
that versus the reverse grids, which, a lot of people weren't in favor, a lot of fans and everything were in favor of reverse
yeah.
grids. Even Martin Brundle, I think, was in favor of reverse grids, but teams apparently not. And so this is sort of a nod to trying to shake things up and do something a little different, I think.
Right. I'm fine with it. Reverse grids, that's a bit manipulative, I guess. But I said if more racing is better, right?
Yeah, right, right.
I think. I mean, what we've seen, how much the crowds change from a Friday to a Saturday to a Sunday. Why not give them the people that show up on Saturdays really something to watch? I have no problem with it, and move the qualifying to Friday. It's just a
Right.
different process, but maybe more entertaining process.
Yeah, I'm just curious if, with the new cost cap in, if it's more, it's got to be more expensive to run a
Yeah.
sprint race on a Saturday than a qualifying session. I'm just kind of curious how they'll reconcile that within the budget. I think there's a lot of details. Does it pay points, and all the way down to driver contracts. They're contracted to race on Sunday. Not have a longer race on Saturday. And what does that look like? And there's a lot of permutations that I think the series has to wade through on that. So we'll see how it works out. Difficult to know. Let's see. Let's talk about the rules. The cost cap, as I said, is in effect now, and the teams were very judicious on where they spent their development tokens for 2021, given that the entire rule book changes in 22. Boy, sorry about that, folks. Everybody's trying to call me all of a sudden. I have no idea. I'm really not that popular. It's terrible. So anyway, with the regulations completely changing in 2022, they're very judicious on how much money they're spending in 2021. These were to be carryover cars for a transitional year, and while some teams treated it as such, others did spend tokens in very key areas. Now, why is that important? Well, you have to keep in mind that some teams, if competitive in the midfield early on, may not be spending much in development, and they will be left behind by the end of the season. It's not a good situation to have, but the rule changes have prompted the move. Also, keep in mind that the lower you are in the championship, the more CFD time you'll get for the 2022 car. And some teams may give up a little early in 21 in order to gain more CFD time for the 22 car, being that it's an all new regulation, all new change, right? So there kind of is that issue to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, that now the CFD time, that's interesting, right? You would say, okay, well, the Haas are just saving up their CFD time, but when do they allocate you your CFD time? At the end of the season? They have to wait till the results are in. And how does that work when you basically should have already designed your car by that point?
Yeah.
CFD will help, but it's too late by that time, I would imagine. So I don't know how the teams are going to develop their next car with those rules constraints.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm not sure how they do that or when they allocate that. I haven't read any of the details on that. I just know that the lower in the championship order, the more CFD time you get, and maybe that isn't a knock-on effect until 23. I don't know. That's a good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Who knows? I'll have to research that, Paul. Give me some homework.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's good. So having said that about the season, about the cost cap, kind of where these development tokens were spent, some teams using them in key areas of their car. We'll get into some of that. Let's start off. These really are in no particular order. We'll give our predictions towards the end of the podcast, but no particular order. that I listed these, but we'll start with Mercedes. Yes. Let's start with Mercedes. Returning drivers, Lewis Hamilton. Paul, he's a 7-time world champ. I didn't know if you knew that.
I just read that.
Yeah.
And
Valtteri Bottas returning for the 21 campaign. The team had a tough testing session, as we mentioned in our test review, and the car looked nervous, a little unstable, and neither driver really looked happy with the results to me. Much has been made about Lewis spinning and looking the worst of the two during the testing, and they assume that that's a real sign that that Merc are in trouble with the car. I have a little bit of a theory about that. I'm not saying one way or another, but I kind of feel like, judging by Lewis's just overall demeanor, his body language, his words and actions from testing, I'm just kind of wondering if this is the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory part of me. I'm just wondering if he isn't a bit distracted heading into that testing session. He was short with his answers a little bit. I'm just kind of curious, is there some bigger friction going on with that whole just signing a 1-year deal? Um, he just, I don't know, he just looked like someone who was a little disenchanted with the situation, and Valtteri looked a little more all in on the testing program. I don't know, but there's definitely a bit of a disconnect over the 1-year extension, because that's not what he was entering in those negotiations thinking. He was thinking driving and a whole post-driving career and all that stuff, and all of that pretty much was crickets. And then all of a sudden, we've extended for a year. That can't be what he wanted.
No, I don't think it's what I think I think you may be right, and I think that's why Valtteri needs to take that just do or die situation at the beginning, because I think you're right. Lewis didn't get what he wanted. He's a 7-time champion. He's won so much stuff for Mercedes, and now he's feeling butthurt, and maybe rightfully so. I don't know, but if he's distracted, we know that can really affect him on the track. And
totally can.
He can have some lulls in his performance, and I don't think it's going to last for long.
No,
because Lewis is ultimately ultra competitive and in it for himself. And if he thinks these distractions are affecting what he wants to achieve as a driver, he's going to put them to bed pretty quick. But it may not happen instantly. And so I think Valtteri needs to knock some points up the championship and try and keep that for as long as he can to give him some chance of beating Lewis to the championship. I think that's, in the Star Wars theme, his only hope, right?
Right. If there was a season for Valtteri, this could be it. In my mind,
his Rosberg season. Yeah,
it could be the Rosberg season. I'm saying it could be, because if Lewis is distracted or unhappy with the last-minute 1-year deal, and there's some friction there, it'll take Lewis a little bit to process that and get back in the mode of, as you say, and I think you're spot on. He wants to achieve 8 titles, so he'll get over it. But if Valtteri comes out swinging and takes some serious points in the first few races, that may be a little bit of unsettling. He may be it would add or at least compound the frustration that Lewis may or may not have. This is total conjecture on my part, but
right.
I just think that Lewis can't be happy. He didn't seem happy in testing. He didn't seem sort of his jovial self. He's really into the causes he's championing. Didn't get the deal he wanted. Decided to ink just a 1-year deal to try to nab that 8th. I don't know. Keep your eye on that. Watch that space.
Yeah. Now, as to the car, I think we touched on it a little bit. I think Mercedes have a lot of bandwidth to experiment and maybe fill in some of those voids that they do occasionally come to at different tracks. So I think they may have been doing some of that. I don't see any reason why, with the carryover of car, as much as it is for everybody, that they have all of a sudden designed a car that doesn't work anymore. I think they can always go back to what they had last year and still have a race-winning, championship-winning car anyway. So
as I was watching Sky,
give it a go.
Yeah, I was watching the testing with Sky, and there was some interesting thoughts behind the higher rake, and many believing that the narrowed floor on the back of the car, that the higher rake cars actually are doing better than the lower rake. And in watching Lewis spin and the nervousness of that Merc chassis during testing, there was some just, it reminded me of Red Bull a year ago when testing, they were
Hmm.
spinning and Max was spinning a lot. And, um, and they did have some reliability issues with the Merc and gearbox issues and those kind of things. Now, as you said, they will get on top of what plagues them because they'll be able to do a lot. This is Mercedes. There's no part of me that thinks that Mercedes is on the back foot, that they've completely missed the plot. I watched the post-test interview with James Vowles and Shovlin, and they weren't waxing poetic. They were basically saying, yeah, we got an issue and we harvest a lot of data and we got to look at all that data right now
Yeah.
and we got to figure out what's going on in that car. My point is, it is Mercedes. They will figure out what's going on in that car. They're wickedly
Right.
smart and they'll get on top of it. Um, I think they'll solve their issues. I think Lewis will take his 8th title, but there's also a part of me that would love to see the excitement of seeing Red Bull beat Mercedes and change things up for the entertainment value of this year, since it's a bit of a transitional or throwaway season in anticipation for 22.
Hmm.
Um, but there's it's kind of split camps. A lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, Mercedes in trouble." I just I don't know. I would have a hard time believing that this team comes out of the box this weekend and has missed the complete plot.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It's just not
Agreed.
Mercedes. Yeah.
Hmm.
And whatever issue that they found in testing will have been thoroughly researched in the last week and a half. And whatever they hit the ground running with this weekend in Bahrain, whatever issues they have there, they will attack that, to come up with a solution. So
Yep.
I have every reason to believe they'll do well. So that's kind of how we think about the drivers. Lewis certainly poised for his 8th title. It's there for the taking. Mercedes is a terrific car despite having a poor testing. Hopefully, the lack of mileage doesn't expose any sort of reliability issues that they may have during the season. They did have some new engine components that they brought out, so hopefully there is that issue that no one can really control other than fixing whatever those issues are.
Right.
So reliability is going to be a main issue for him at that point. But and if there was like I said, if there was a moment for Valtteri, it would be this year.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, certainly the beginning of the year, that's when he's got to bang those points in.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
Let's talk about Red Bull with Max Verstappen and the new guy, youngster Sergio Perez.
The young bull. Yes.
Yes, yes, exactly. Well, Red Bull had a great testing, as we mentioned on the last podcast. Now, Honda says that this year's engine is the best they've ever made, and it's on par with Merck's from last year. And if that's true, and Mercedes can't solve their issues next week by this weekend, Red Bull could very well be a team to beat, according in looking at their testing pace. The team had a fantastic session during testing. The car looked good on every permutation in my mind. I was watching all the onboards and every permutation of the program that they set out to do in testing looked like it went swimmingly and
Yep.
exactly according to plan. Gone were those twitchy spins that they had last year. I didn't see a lot of seesawing of the wheel. Everything looked planted to me, Paul, when they were doing the testing. And if the pace and Honda is right, achieving that size 0 concept that McLaren started, if it's even a smaller package, and if
Hmm.
it's on par, like Honda says, for their final year as a supplier, this could be a really good year for Red Bull.
Yeah, I think it will be a really good year. I mean, I before, it was like Red Bull were the best of the rest, and sometimes the drivers made the difference to, certainly Max did, to make it a little more interesting. But now I think the car's there to match, so I think it's going to be pretty close in the points in the end. I think what we have is the drivers are going to have much more of an influence on the team's success or failure than has been allowed to happen before, right? Max could win some races, but the most part, if Lewis is winning the race, then Bottas is going to be pretty close behind, and occasionally Max could get in there and mix it up with them. But I think with Perez as the number two, I think it's really going to force the Mercedes drivers to be on the top of their game the whole time. I think the car is really good. A lot of carryover of competitiveness that they showed in the last third of the year as well. So
yeah, that's right.
I think it's been fun to watch. And I think as much as we said, Valtteri needs to bank some points in the beginning, I think Max and Checo should be thinking the same thing as well. I think they're going to have a really good car to compete with Mercedes. Certainly at the beginning, I think Mercedes are going to get around it, but they might put them on the back foot a little bit if they really get some good successes in these first 3 or 4 races.
Yeah, there's a part of me that thinks that Christian Horner has really made a play here. With the other teams viewing this as sort of a transitional year, it just seems like he's doubled down on this with Honda delivering. Now he knows this, that getting those engines frozen is critical. Having Honda deliver the best engine they've ever made for this season that they believe is on par with Merc, then freezing it is critical. I think it's a brilliant move, right? Yeah. So there's a part of me that thinks he's made a real power play here, and maybe trying to steal a title from Merc. Merc will get on top of it, but this may be a really, really good fight. And you and I talked about this in past podcasts about Red Bull, and they have Max Verstappen. That's their star driver for all the right reasons. But bringing up these rookies and these young guys from AlphaTauri just isn't paying dividends when you're hunting championships as a constructor.
Yeah, and it's a distraction.
It is a distraction. Think of all the time we talked about Albon last year, and he's just losing confidence. This is for real. And if you're going for it, I think signing Perez is Christian's way of saying, you know what? Yeah, this isn't work. We got to get 2 hot shoes in this car. And in Sergio Perez, you have a guy that may not always have the fastest qualifying time, but he is always there in the race. Yep. And he will deliver points where Gasly hadn't, Albon hadn't. He will deliver the points like Ricciardo used to. He'll do it and deliver. And a lot of people talking about, well, could Perez beat Verstappen? And I think it's early doors. I think Max is an entity unto himself. But I think Perez is going to be thereabouts, finishing where they need him to finish to go after the constructors' points.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be filling a void that they've left. The door has been wide open for other teams to jump in between those 2 cars, and that's just can't happen. As I said, it's one thing about the driver, but as I said, it's the distraction of the team on getting the car to move forward through the season, where they're just worrying about getting the car so that Albon or Gasly aren't scared of it the whole time. Well, there's no excuses because you got Checo in there, and he's been in the frying pan already. He knows what it's all about, and he's got so much more experience that it's not going to deter him. So I think that Bottas has to watch out not to finish 4th in the Drivers' Championship, but I think that ultimately the Manufacturers' Championship is going to be awfully close this year.
Yeah, I hope so. Man, I hope so. I'd love to see it be neck and neck, race to race, track to track. I think that would be, F1 fans would love to see that. Sergio says, give him a few races before he can get a sea legs. And I think that's a fair assumption because this car's the drivability of this car is completely different than the Racing Point ever was. Yeah. A whole different engine, different braking, everything's different. It's going to take him a little bit to get on top of that, but he is a seasoned pro and he'll get on top of it pretty quick, I think. Yeah. If you see him really struggling all season long, kind of like what Albon did, then that car is clearly designed just for Max, because Checo should be able to get on top of this. So I think it's a brilliant move. You and I both have had a lot of time for Sergio ever since he came into F1. I think it's a brilliant move and one of the strongest driver lineups on that entire grid.
Absolutely, yeah. At the right time, for sure.
Yeah, exactly the right time. A transition year, Christian could come in and nip this title, and it would be really good to see Red Bull get back there. Let's talk about Alpine. They have Esteban Ocon returning two-time champion Fernando Alonso with a cracked jaw, no doubt, with titanium plates that will be in his jaw all season long. Alpine did decent mileage in the test, and Alonso didn't seem to have missed a beat when we reviewed that testing. I mean, he was wringing the neck of that car. The long runs were outstanding during testing, but the team believed that bulbous airbox concept will assist aero. They think that the narrower waist and controlling airflow down low, like we said last weekend, will improve it. Renault hasn't updated this engine, and Paul, that could be the most difficult part of Alpine's season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to see. I was just going to say that the team have gone through big management changes also. They kicked Cyril to the curb.
Yes.
And they've brought Alonso in, and Alonso, alongside the new motorcycle boss, Davide Bruvio. And, Alonso's going to push that team, has already started pushing him. And it's a transitional season, all new car next year. These are all changes that this team is going through. I think that is difficult to manage. Not that all those moving parts aren't good people, not that Alonso's not a great driver. You've got a Renault engine that hasn't really developed. All of that is going to add to the challenges that I think this team is going to face. I say that, but you do have to factor the Alonso magic in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put him in the equation, he can drag this car forward and assist building that team for 2022 and make the right changes. But I kind of anticipate a bit of a challenging season for them.
Yeah. It didn't take Alonso long to get someone fired, did it? Jeez. Well, he walked through the door, or maybe that was the whole deal. He was like, I'm not walking through the door till that guy's gone.
Till that guy's gone.
I mean, before we were saying, oh, I'm not sure if that relationship's going to work well. There you go. Done. Job done. Fernando.
You get a strong personality like Fernando walking there. The idea of having Cyril there at the helm, just poof, get rid of Cyril.
Yeah. So yeah. I think it's going to be better for him. I mean, but it's going to obviously. Alonso's going to lead the team in the direction he wants it to go. Yeah. It's worked in the past. When he went to McLaren, I don't think McLaren had it right to get the best out of him when he was in his second iteration anyway at McLaren, right? So, but I think he's ready. I think he's hungry. I think that, the Renault engine, it may not be the best, but it did fairly decent in the hands of a McLaren last year.
Yeah.
And I think, if they can get that car consistent, it won't be as bad as you think. But the Alonso factor is definitely something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
I think Ocon's going to have a rude awakening. I think he had it last year, actually. Awakening on where he is in the pecking order. Took some of the doubt away from me, which I didn't have much. But
I'm telling you, if I was Alpine, I'd be calling Gasly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. If Gasly can't find a route through the Red Bull ranks at any time soon, then absolutely. But I got a feeling because Perez has that one, he's only got 1 year deal. So I don't know if he's just warming the seat for Gasly for the next year. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's going to be something different. I'm just not sure where Sergio's was planning to go, if he is going to plan to go anywhere.
Right.
So, I think it could be difficult, but I think it's going to be better for them the next year. But the midfield battle is just so tight.
It is tight.
You blink and you're down into seventh in the championship already, right?
Yeah, that fight for third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, it's going to be really tight, I think. And talking about the next team, Aston Martin, Sebastian Vettel moving over to Aston Martin. Woo! Lance Stroll there. The team spent their tokens on their chassis. I've read a couple different variations of this. I've read that it's a new chassis. I've read that, it was a transitional, but they spent a lot of tokens on the aero, so 50% of this chassis is basically an all Aston Martin design. They took the Mercedes transmission, suspension, and engine, but unlike last year, this isn't quite a pink Mercedes, now painted green. It's very much an Aston Martin car. Or at least more so with Mercedes DNA in the shove department. But despite all that, I view this as a bit of a transition year for the team with Vettel coming in, new aero packages. It's a little lower rake, and the team trying to learn and get on top of the Mercedes suspension, which seemed to be a bit challenging during testing, in my mind. If they take a step backwards in 21, I don't think we can judge that too harshly, as Lawrence is keen to make this very much an Aston Martin program. And you all know that when you start acting like a true constructor and true investment, people that are behind it, highly motivated, sometimes you can make those decisions and sometimes you got to take a step back. You get Vettel in to help you coach, help coach you through the driver, to get Lance to teach him. There's a development and a transition that happens as instead of just copying the Mercedes and painting it pink. And I think Lawrence is, for all intents and purposes, I think Lawrence is for real. He's damned serious to make this an Aston Martin team.
Well, you can't be a customer team and be a manufacturer, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to be able to, go out the door and live on your own.
Right.
So I think that's part of it, that, they can't just keep copying Mercedes bits. It was fine, I think, honestly, as before they became a manufacturer team, to be a customer car team and do that. But yeah, they have to have their own DNA for sure. They've been pretty smart about their strategy on chassis and when they come out and how they develop them, etc. And obviously this year there's going to be the CFD and the cost constraints and everything like that. Are they pushing in some 2022 designs and parts, so they're ahead of the game when they hit the ground running in 2022? Not they're throwing away this year, but I'm just wondering why they developed their chassis so much compared to maybe some other people. And it might be just because they're actually developing the car for the 22 season rather than just focusing on finishing off 2021 with a road car.
I don't remember if it was Aston Martin. I apologies, folks. I don't remember which team it was. One of the teams, it may have been Aston Martin. Or could have been McLaren. It may have been McLaren. But anyway, they developed their 2021 nose last year.
Mm-hmm.
So when they ran it, it was a carryover piece. They didn't have to spend tokens on it.
Right. McLaren, I believe. Yeah.
Maybe it was McLaren that did that. So you could see Aston Martin doing something very similar here.
Right.
And working. They're pretty crafty folks over there, Otmar and the folks.
Yeah, they always did a lot with a little, and some
they did.
It was purely just thinking outside the box. We always saw the 1.5 year chassis program, which actually worked really well for them, honestly. It made sense to me. So I think that most of the same people are there still. So why would you think they would be changing that strategy?
Yeah.
So one thing I do question is the Vettel thing. I haven't heard much about Vettel being a great development driver or influence on a team. Have you?
I have. I've read that. Yeah, I've read that he's pretty meticulous, pretty comprehensive from the overall program. The team said that he's really fit in. He's already helping quite a bit with their program. I've heard that he actually is really good at feedback. I'm wondering, it'll be very interesting. The other side of this is think about the lessons in coaching he can give Lance as a 4-time champion. I think that's beneficial for Lance, in a lot of ways.
Right.
Having that veteran in there as assisting from a driving standpoint. How fast will Seb be? Will he be completely rejuvenated? Are we going to see the Seb of Red Bull era? Or is he really there to just bring his wealth of knowledge of team, of sport, how it works, coach Lance, and which Vettel are we getting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting the Vettel that's going to hit the ground running like a bat out of hell? Or is he really there for a more holistic program approach? I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on his demeanor, right? I'm not sure any Formula One driver wants to be a teammate and be there just to help the other guy. I don't see Vettel wanting to do that. I think he'd rather not drive. I think he must see something in that team, or maybe that was his only option. But he obviously, his option was not to race anymore, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
He wants to keep racing. So he must have something he still wants to achieve, and he's still got the fire to keep it going. So there must be something with what they came to him with that seemed attractive to him.
Right.
He's he's deep in the history of racing. So I think he's not just a guy not an Eddie Irvine who finishes racing Formula One and then just goes and becomes a real estate mogul.
Right.
I think he's just racing is driving cars and all that kind of stuff is his life. So I think he has an interest in seeing not just from behind the wheel, but being involved in many other aspects of it.
Right.
That's why I like doing what I'm doing in the harder racing,
Yeah,
right?
that's
It's
right.
like I'm not driving the car, but I still bring a lot of the experience I've had, and I enjoy that immensely, being involved in all the other stuff behind the pit wall. So it might be just something that he enjoys to do, and he wants to be a part of it, and wants to be. Obviously, with Ferrari, it was difficult, and he wasn't able to achieve what he wanted to do, which is bringing them their next title. But
Right.
now, can he do something for Aston Martin that they've never achieved before? Who knows? He's certainly a smart guy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so whether it's about his motivation behind his drive and why he's there that's going to really make difference.
Yeah, he's certainly fast too. I can attest to that. He's a really good driver. Let's talk about McLaren. New driver lineup. Daniel Ricciardo, Lando Norris over there. McLaren were fantastic during testing. Very reliable, quick. They ran a complete program like Red Bull did. Dan, like Alonso, looked completely at home. In my mind, watching him in testing, he looked completely home. He looked like he's already there. That bodes very well for the team that he hit the ground running. And it's what you would expect from Alonso or what you'd expect from Daniel Ricciardo. And quite honestly, kind of what you'd expect from Sergio Perez, to be honest with you. These guys are pros. And if you consider, also in my mind, if you consider the injection of motivation that last year's result gave them as best of the rest, I mean, it's one thing to think you can, be best of the rest, and another thing to actually be best of the rest. And that's given, I think last year's results really kind of buoyed this team and given this team a lot of excitement with Ricardo coming in. That's great. Lando really had a good year, put in some great performances last year. I think it's a serious shot in the arm and confidence, along with Ricardo. He's a 9-time race winner. I think that's good. I think the team did a massive job of fitting that Mercedes engine to the back of that chassis. And the one question I would have is down to cash and how much development can Zach afford in 21, and how much does Zach want to pour into development with the budget caps in a transitional year, a transitional car. And I'm kind of curious if they're running best of the rest and there's someone else challenging for the best, how much do they pour into that? It's worth millions, so you would expect that they would pour money in it, but how much do they have, knowing the financial difficulties they had just 8 months ago?
Well, knowing Zach, I think they would just go full force.
Yeah.
Because success breeds money.
Yeah, right. Sponsorship.
Right? I mean, and there's nothing that Zach, in my mind, I'd say Zach would say, we'll just do whatever we do to make the car competitive. I'll go get the money, right?
Right.
And there's nothing that attracts money than a successful car. So I really believe, and it's in McLaren historically. They've done so much, and I don't think their drive for being the best has gone away at all. They did have struggles, and that's brutal. I mean, demoralizing for everybody over there. But I think now they've got their foot up. They're just not going to let themselves take a step back down the ladder. I just don't see it. I think it was an amazing job to get that Mercedes to work so quickly, not just to make sure the thing isn't stopping every 5 laps to fix where the little clip should have been tightened a little bit, but just to get it dynamically in the car and make the car actually work in such a short time. Just phenomenal job by then. And they've done really well with their driver lineups recently. I think Zach's done a great job there, and Carlos Sainz is a great driver, but I think Ricciardo brings just that little bit extra, with his race wins that you said, the 9 race wins. I think he's obviously going to blend in with the drive with Lando. He's a fun-loving guy, but I just think he brings just that little bit of tenacity to the craft of being in a race that they're really going to enjoy, and it's going to keep those results coming. I'm really looking forward to this team, not because I've been involved with McLaren before, but I just think everything they've done up until this point has been phenomenal, and I think their next race win is going to come this year. Somehow, somewhere, it's going to happen. I really think they got the momentum on their side.
And I don't think Daniel is a fun-loving guy, but he's got a little bit of a different demeanor now. I don't think he has any interest in going there and playing footsie with Lando, to be honest with you.
Right.
I think he's there to win races. He's there to do it, and he wants to take take this team forward. And I think he's got a different
2 years
approach.
of Renault would do that to you.
It would. And in defense of Lando, I think there's a change in his demeanor. I don't think he wants to play footsie like he was with Carlos and having the fun.
Did he get in trouble this week, Lando, for something? I
don't know.
Saying
Did he?
Canceled his Twitter or something. I don't know what the hell.
Oh, who knows?
No,
I think he's probably, it's just a maturing process. He's a young guy. I think he had fun. I think the bromance was fun for social media. Nothing wrong with that. I just think that Lando realizes it's put up or shut up time.
Right.
This is for real.
That can be a distraction at some point, even if you're not noticing it to be.
Right. And I think Lando, what he had with Carlos is just a good collegial sort of relationship, and they had a lot of fun. I think he views Ricardo a little differently. This guy's a piranha, and I think he knows it. And if he has any hope of beating Dan, he's got to bring his A game, and there can't be any shenanigans,
no, absolutely.
And I think that's wise, because I don't think Dan's there for shenanigans. I think Dan's there to win, so good on him. The next team we're going to talk about is sort of the talk of the paddock coming out of testing. AlphaTauri, you had Yuki Tsunoda, rookie, his first season in Formula One. And Pierre Gasly, who we know just turned his career around last year with a win and just a brilliant performance in 2020. So this team coming in with an exciting driver lineup. Yuki did a fabulous job in testing, looked very planted in testing. But the AlphaTauri car itself is the talk of the town. A lot of people think this thing is on rails and look fantastic. If I'm honest, I think that, this is the team I'm very excited about, is they've made some very good moves with this year's car, including taking everything they are allowed to take from Red Bull, and that includes the terrific front suspension from Red Bull, that the team were able to modify their old chassis to accommodate the new suspension, meaning they didn't have to spend tokens on the front of the car. They could spin it on the back of the car where they wanted. There was a lot of raised eyebrows. They were really plowing close to the corn on the regulations there. Gasly had a great testing session. His long run pace looked terrific, as did Yuki's. The engine seemed, if they are right, and that Honda engine's on par with last year's Merc, the team may be one to watch for battle for best of the rest, or at least a lot of people are thinking that could be the case. And how cool would that be to see not only Red Bull make the moves that they've made with Checo and Max, but see AlphaTauri now running for best of the rest. Paul, this raises the entire Red Bull operation up the grid, including their junior team, which was sort of their rookie team. But in the hands of Gasly, it's not so rookie anymore. And if that car with a lot of rake is there or thereabouts with the Red Bull parent team, this could be a pretty daunting force.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the apple isn't going to fall far from the tree between the two cars, right? So the Red Bull's on rails, the AlphaTauri's not going to be too far behind. And Gasly's shown, as you said, he had a brilliant 2020. I mean, just stunning.
Yeah.
So if he just brings that kind of performance again, then yes, they are going to be a threat. I think their second driver is going to be a bit of a struggle for their points ultimately in the end. I know he's quick. He is quick, but 23 races, all the tracks you've probably never been to.
Yeah.
That's pretty daunting. You can't even focus on a certain track and get to learn it. You're like rolling from one to the next to the next. So it's trial by fire for him. I think he's going to have some good days, but I don't think he's going to have some bad days too. And I think ultimately that's what's going to hurt them in the championship points, not necessarily being competitive on a race by race basis, but definitely they're going to lose some points having a
Yeah.
rookie in there as number 2 when you compare him to McLaren, who have
Yes.
Ricciardo and Norris, right?
Right. Yeah. I think that'll be tough. It'll be tough for Yuki. I think the expectations are going to be, pretty heavy on him, and that won't be easy to deal with.
Yeah,
And as we've seen, Red Bull's pretty good at chewing up drivers and spitting them out.
right.
And that's a tough environment to deal with.
Yeah,
So yeah, keep your eye on that because if the AlphaTauris are as fast as they looked in testing, that could be very, very interesting. I'm not saying for the championship, but for the best of the rest or that midfield, they
yeah.
may have just jumped up in that midfield quite a bit.
So do you think now that we got Max and Perez at Red Bull, you think Helmut's going to start walking down to AlphaTauri a bit more this year?
Yeah,
So he can stir up some trouble.
yeah. You may go down to AlphaTauri and Yuki, we got other drivers that could be in here. Yeah, he might. It'd be interesting to see. There's a part of me also with AlphaTauri. Why treat it like a junior team throwing rookies in there? At this point, it's millions of dollars in the championship. Why not have two teams going for the championship?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah.
Why not? Why not? Why consign yourself to thinking AlphaTauri is going to run midfield or lower? You got Gasly. He's a proven race winner.
Right.
Yes, there was attrition and stuff, but still, if your car is on song, Gasly will deliver. Why not get another guy in there that can deliver too?
Yep, absolutely. I think, how do you pronounce it? Sonoda. Sonoda. So, I mean, from what I've read, he's a proper deal, but man, this is a really tough. I said there is a lot of good drivers on this grid, and the midfield battle is awfully tight. So you give up a little of experience. It's hard to replace that with just pure skill because the level is too high. You're not going to be head and shoulders above anybody on the grid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the competition. We just look across that. The George Russells and the other young drivers that are just on it. It's a tough field.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. Boy, do we have to? Or?
We can skip it if it's too hurtful for you.
I don't know.
You probably do.
Let's talk about Ferrari, shall we?
Aye.
All right. So you've got Charles Leclerc, or as Charles himself says it, Charles Leclerc.
Okay, we'll have to go with how he says it.
That's what he said. I just watched him introduce himself. I'm Charles Leclerc.
Okay.
So there you go. And Carlos Sainz.
Right.
Over at Ferrari. A brand new pairing, which my high school age daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, has now officially declared Ferrari the cutest driver lineup on the entire grid. I was showing her a little bit of some season preview, and we were watching some F1 video and Drive to Survive. Now, she's always been a Charles Leclerc fan.
Yeah.
But when she saw Carlos, she hadn't seen Carlos Sainz before, and I showed her, she was like, he's beautiful.
But he has some bad hair days.
He does have some bad hair days.
Yeah,
it's
it
true.
takes a lot to make that hair look good sometimes. Yeah.
But there you go. So one thing Ferrari, just know, going into the 2021 season, they have the cutest drivers, according to my daughter. So there you go.
Perfect.
So they got that going for them. So let's get a couple issues out of the way up front. Ferrari says they have solved for much of their engine deficit that they experienced last year, born from the FIA directive that saw the 2019 engine neutered. When that engine was neutered and they had that very draggy car because they were banking on much more shove that they didn't get, all of a sudden that car became very draggy. They added serious shove at the back of the car this year, pounded out massive mileage during testing. If you consider they have two customer teams as well, lots of mileage. Their low fuel and long run pace I thought looked really good. The lack of shove and the draggy car plagued them last year, but this year the drivers seemed a lot happier with the lack of drag that they had. They weren't error-free totally from the testing, But you have to think that it's a step in the right direction back toward the sharp end of the grid for them. The big question is, can they be fighting for best of the rest or third? And at this point, I'm not sure they can. You've got AlphaTauri who's on song. You got McLaren, possibly Aston Martin. There's a lot of competition in that midfield. Where will Ferrari rank? Suffice to say, the midfield is going to be very, very close this year. It was really close last year, and it's going to be closer probably this year, and that's going to be difficult for Ferrari to overcome. It all boils down to how much shove they've got in the back of that car. I don't think the car looked out of control. I don't think it looked as nervous or didn't look as draggy as it was last year, Paul. And in my mind, it does come down to that shove. And as far as reliability, they did tons of mileage, more than anyone. So you have to think the reliability of their improved engine is there. There's some talk, as we mentioned last week, that they doing the split turbo. Nobody's 100% sure. Have they delivered? And could we show up this weekend thinking, holy crap, Ferrari is on it?
Have they? I'm not sure. Will they this weekend? I don't think so. They make gains on their motor from last year, but they were in the depths sometimes. I mean, you had Vettel and Leclerc
last.
Yeah, I mean,
getting passed by a Williams.
It's not easy to switch, your engine. If it was all new engines every year, maybe that dramatic. I don't think anything dramatic can happen. I'm sure they've made improvements, but I don't think they can make a big enough improvement from a very, very bad season last year to now, and all of a sudden be fighting for the front row. I just don't see it. I think the driver's lineup is good. I think they'll get the most out of the car, but I just think right now they've just got to. I think they can be a bit better than last year, but I just don't see it just being a whole 180-degree turnaround for them. I just don't know how they would achieve that. And I don't see anything in the testing that made me feel like they've all of a sudden changed the engine to be a Mercedes beater right now.
So
it's a shit box.
Maybe a dirty box, maybe not a shit box.
Okay,
it's not good.
Close enough.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a struggle for him. I really do. I think Charles Leclerc did some impressive stuff with that car last year, and I think he can do again. And I think Sainz will be doing something similar. And so I'm not saying every weekend they're going to be right back there out in Q2, but I do think they're not going to all of a sudden be back to fighting for the top 3 in the championship at all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of not fighting for the championship, we're down to Haas F1.
Well, I think they were going to went to GP2 next year.
Yeah,
I thought that's where they were going.
Right. You've got Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. Haas is for all effective purposes on life support. Their new sponsorship by Nikita's father is, in my guesswork, I think it's his first look at buying the team outright, to be honest. That's why they did all the big sponsorship, and I still believe, even though having watched Drive to Survive, all of it, and I understand that the sponsor really wanted a German driver in that team, and that's why they got. I totally get all that. I still think Schumacher should be at Alfa Romeo, but that's just my opinion. However, having said that, if you watch Drive to Survive, you'll know that Gunther needed the investment. I think Gene calling and saying that's it, he isn't willing to pump any more money back in to a back marker. So he needed to make the move that he did with Mazepin's father. The sponsorship, obviously, as I mentioned, wanted a German driver. That's why they got Schumacher. He's certainly a name brand. Regardless of how well he does, it is a transition car. They're not planning on any or much development for 2021. That means that, Mick's only going to be so good. No matter how good he is, he's only going to be so good. The team, in my mind, could be destined to replace Williams as the last place team during the season. That's tough for Mick and even Nikita. to deal with mentally, knowing that that's what you're going into. They may be able to pull a few rabbits out of their hat, get ahead of Williams, because Williams has a gamble that we'll talk about in a minute. But it's going to be a tough 23 race slog towards the back end of the grid.
Yeah, I think they're the least favorable to win the championship.
Yeah, right. Right.
So, yeah, it is tough. I mean, I agree. I think Schumacher should be at Alfa Romeo because you got Kimi Räikkönen at Alfa Romeo, and he could draw a lot of experience out of Kimi. You know,
Absolutely.
He doesn't talk very much, but I think he could learn a lot from him. So I think that's a bit of a miss for his career and maybe for the Ferrari Driver Academy. But I haven't seen drives of any portion of Drive for Survive. I was a little busy this weekend, but if that's the case, that they need the money, need a German driver, maybe that's whatever gets the deal done, gets you in a Formula One seat, is what you're going to take, right? But yeah, I just don't see them being able to fight their way out of the back of the grid. I mean, rookie drivers, car that wasn't even good in the hands of Magnussen, who I thought was a pretty good driver and
he is a good driver.
Could drive, get the car somewhere if it was capable. But these guys are going to be richly floundering without any information. I think it's going to be worse than even we comprehend, really. So I'm
it's
not
a great
looking
point.
Forward to that.
Even in the hands of Magnussen, you can deliver. You were just watching Magnussen drive.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and he can drive.
He can drive. Yeah. He's
so,
enjoying his life in the IMSA paddock. I'm pretty sure he's got a smile on his face all the time. It's cool.
Have you gone up and chatted him up yet?
No.
You haven't told him to lick your balls?
No. I will if he touches that car, though.
Right.
Some of these DP cars, a couple of them tried to take us out, but Magnussen does it. I'm going to go. Have a word.
You're going to have a go at him, aren't you?
Oi, Magnussen. No. Yes. I will indeed. But yeah, no, he just seems very cheerful running around the paddock. It's fun to see, as I said.
Yeah, it's good.
Jimmy Johnson's not so happy.
No. Let's talk about Alfa Romeo. Kimi Räikkönen and Antonio Giovinazzi setting the most miles of any team. Alfa have worked a lot on the front end of their car. They didn't take Ferrari's new transmission. I'm not entirely convinced that this team will be running around at the back as much as they have been. I feel like with that amount of mileage, with Antonio knowing it's basically put up or shut up time for him. This is it. I kind of feel like for him.
I thought that was it last year.
Well, I did too.
I think he dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because I thought Mick was just going there. Based on testing and performance alone, you have to think that the team may have taken a step forward. But just how much development is Fred planning for that team in a transition year? I don't know, and I can't imagine that it's a lot, to be honest with you. I think they, like some of the smaller teams, limited budgets on that development. They're probably going to focus on the 22 car pretty early, especially if they can get some CFD time. So I don't know. I don't see them as far at the back as they have been, but it's certainly a midfield car, I think, at this point.
Yeah, they're just kind of a treading water team. It's a shame because I think when it first became Alfa Romeo, I think they had some high spots, but it just
the first season.
Yeah, it seemed like they could on occasion they could really compete, but they just seemed like a P10, P11 team every week. But it would be nice to see something change in their approach or the performance of the car. I just don't know where they're going to find it being pretty much in lockstep with whatever Ferrari are doing. I know you said the gearbox wasn't transferred for whatever reason that is. Maybe they didn't like how the Ferrari's rear suspension or whatever it goes, and it wasn't going their way. But you got to believe those two teams talk often. So I think Ferrari's not going to be really on the sharp end. I can't see that Alfa Romeo being able to make that much of a difference either.
Yeah, I don't see it. I hope I'm wrong. Trust me. I'd love to see Kimi do well. But I think it's going to be a difficult year. And then finally, we're down to Williams, George Russell, Nicholas Latifi. You'll recall in past seasons that Paul and I have spoken about how teams design their cars for certain types of tracks. and Paul talked about this quite a bit on our past podcast, where those teams are, that when you have those development and you develop it just for high speed circuits, and that's what you're going for, and you're hoping to haul in points at that. That's pretty much exactly what Williams has done this year. They've gambled on just that strategy with a car that's designed to perform on maybe 4 or 5 half dozen calendar races on the calendar out of 23. So they're banking it all on these types of tracks, and that's what they're going to run to. Will it work? Well, if they score really good points at those circuits, it may work. And if Haas or Alfa are struggling to get points and they're trying to be all things to all circuits, well, this could work. If it doesn't, it's pretty much a season over for them. So it's a bit of a gamble, one that Williams is betting on. And like Haas, I'm not expecting a whole lot of in-season development. I think they're developing for those circuits. That's what they're going for. And if they don't get the results of those circuits, then it's back down the grid.
Yeah, all the eggs in the basket.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad strategy with a team that doesn't have all the funding in the world.
Right.
And we know that just scoring a couple of points can really make, at the back end, just getting a few, 2 or 3, 7th places can make the difference in where you end up in the whole championship. And I mean, they've got a great chance of beating Haas, obviously, but I think they also might be able to get one rung up depending on how those races go.
Right.
George, we know he can drive.
For sure.
So I think, that is their strategy. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad one at all with what they're having to work with. They are taking on more outside influence parts, etc. They're not, because the old Williams was just like, we're always going to build our own the gearbox. We can do. They're kind of leaving that at the door and becoming more of a customer team, which should help them financially be able to spend some money on some other things that they're always heading towards, just building their own unique parts and pieces. So I think it's a good strategy. I think it'll work. We'll just have to see how well it works at those circuits.
Yeah, right. Well, time will tell how that'll play out. Now it's time to give our predictions before we get out of the podcast. And Paul, because you're a podium finisher this weekend, I'm going to start with you.
Thanks for mentioning that again.
Yes. Yeah, going to give you the honor. Did I mention that you had a podium finish?
Yes.
And did I mention that Paul's team obviously respected the bumps?
We did. It was all about the bumps. Yes.
Yeah. So you totally did a great job on that.
Yeah.
Now it's down to prediction time. So if we're going to put our cards on the table, tell me how you think the championship's going to end and in what order.
Okay. You want me to give you the whole top 10?
Let's start.
We're going to go alternate.
Yeah, we can do alternate. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to pick Mercedes to win the championship.
Okay.
Smidge.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's how it's going to play out too, but I'm going with an emotional pick. I'm saying that Red Bull will win because I just want the excitement.
But you can't say that. You can't say, I think Mercedes is going to win, but I'm going to go with it's either one or the other. You can't say.
Yeah, I'm going in. So I'll say Red Bull.
All in. Okay, there you go. All right.
I think I'm terribly wrong because it is Mercedes.
All right.
And I think Lewis wanting that 8th title and Mercedes wanting that 8th title is going to prompt them to put the money and the resources into this car to claw back what they lost or may have lost to Red Bull. Honda's engine. They say it's on par with Merc from last year. I think Merc's engine this year will be even better. I think you've got the right pick. But emotionally, I want to be behind it because I want the excitement. I'm going to Red Bull.
All right. So are we going to go for the drivers too?
Sure. We can do, we think the drivers will end up. We don't have to go through the whole
thing, but just generally I think Lewis is going to win his 8th championship. But then I think it's going to be Max and Perez, and I think Bottas is going to be 4th and out of there.
Interesting. Bottas 4th. Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's interesting. I think you're probably right. I think it'd be Lewis, Max, and then I would put Bottas Perez probably.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would see it. But But anyway,
right,
so
very
all
good.
right, so you have Merck at top. I have Red Bull, so clearly you have Red Bull in
Correct.
second. I have
Right,
Merck in second.
right.
So now we're down to best of the rest.
All right, best of the rest, and I'm picking our buddy Zach Brown's McLaren to do
Yeah,
it all over again.
that's who I'm picking. I
Yeah.
picked McLaren for best of the rest with Daniel Ricciardo and a Mercedes. I think that's probably a good pick.
Okay.
Unless somebody just completely comes out of nowhere, like Ferrari or AlphaTauri or Aston, somebody comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Ferrari
Uh,
probably the most likely to come out of nowhere.
Probably the most likely. Yeah.
Yeah. They're the really, who knows
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
Ferrari's going to show up.
Exactly.
So
So I
after
got.
that fourth place is probably my emotional pick,
Yeah.
and I'm picking Aston to
Well.
keep
Yeah.
to keep going with what they had. I mean, they're not going to
Right.
unlearn what they had last year. They had a very competitive car. It won a race. I think even though they are changing some things, I think they're still going to get back up
Okay.
to fighting it out with the big boys.
All right. I'm going to go Ferrari at fourth.
Ooh,
I'm going to
okay.
say that they have improved
Is that
their engine
emotional
issue.
or
Yeah, that's partly
intellectually
emotional
chosen?
too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
partly emotional too. Yeah.
Okay,
So
very
I'll
good.
go with Ferrari. And what are we? Fourth? Yeah.
Yep, fourth.
All right.
Yep.
Fifth. Who you got?
I'm going with Alpine,
Oh.
whatever you want to call it. And it's just
Okay.
the Alonso factor that draws me in there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I just think he knows he's only got one more go at it, and Alonso really hasn't lift off the gas anyway. So I just think he's gonna just
Yeah.
thrash that car.
Yeah, I think he will too.
Competitiveness.
Yeah, I think he will too. I'm going to throw a curveball here. Normally, I would have said Aston Martin. I'm going to go with AlphaTauri.
Mm,
And I think AlphaTauri, if they've got the engine, if it's right, I'm really buying into the whole Red Bull propaganda right now. That Honda's
right.
got an engine that's as
You
good as
sure
Merc.
are. Yeah, you're
You
all
know,
in.
that Red Bull's got Checo
Yeah.
and that, Gasly's there and Honda's got a great engine and AlphaTauri took on Red Bull's front suspension and they've got the rake right. I'm just buying all into the excitement.
Okay.
And I'll say AlphaTauri next.
Okay. Very good. Next behind Alpine is Alonso's old team, Ferrari.
You've got Ferrari.
Yeah, down there in sixth place.
Sixth place.
It's better than last year, right? Where did they finish last year? I don't remember.
I don't. Yeah, somewhere
I
around
think
there.
they don't. I think they want to forget it too. So
I think they do.
They probably wouldn't even remember.
Right. I've got Aston Martin there.
Okay, fair enough.
I think the changes they made to the car to be their own car and thing is going to take them a little while to get on top of. And I think with Vettel there, I think he's already struggling. They didn't have a great test session. They had some reliability issues. I think there's going to be some niggles that's going to make it a little more difficult for them this year. But I don't take that necessarily as a bad thing because I think it's Lawrence's first real move into being a full Aston Martin team.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Next up, I got AlphaTauri.
Yeah.
For what I talked about before. I don't think it's the car. I just think, once again, Red Bull bringing in rookie drivers, I think you leave points on the table, and I think that's just going to hurt them eventually.
It's a really good point. Yeah, it's a really good point. I think having that rookie driver, I think I may have Alpha too high. I don't know. It's a really good point. I had Alpine in this position in seventh.
Yep.
I think with the undeveloped Renault engine and the gamble they took on Aero, I think it's going to be a little more difficult. I still think I like your point about the Alonso factor, but can it pull that team up from seventh to sixth, fifth? I think it's a tall order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And now moving down, Alfa Romeo is next.
That's who I have.
Yep.
I have Alfa Romeo in seventh? Is that right?
Seventh. How many teams are on the grid nowadays? I think it's
I don't know.
Yeah,
2,
eighth.
3, 4,
Eighth. I think
5,
it's
6, 7. Yeah, eighth. Sorry.
Yeah.
Eighth.
And then we can finish it up because I think we've both
Williams
got the same.
and Haas.
Williams and Haas. We kind of talked about that anyway. So
Right.
It's pretty obvious there. I'd make money on that last three rather than the top three. I think.
Yeah. I bet my last three are better than the top three.
Yeah, I'm pretty guaranteed. Can I make a bet in Vegas on the last three in the championship?
Right.
Hopefully I can.
So for our TPF Fantasy GP League this weekend, who are you picking for the win? Your podium. Give me your podium.
Oh, that's a tough one. I am going to pick Max to win it, and I'm picking Lewis to come third. So who am I picking? I think it's going to be a Red Bull one too.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right.
I said this. My season prediction is different, but I think here I think it's a 1-2 for Red Bull with a little Lewis just not enjoying his life this weekend.
Oh boy, that's interesting. All right, we'll see how that plays.
What are you
out.
doing?
I don't know. I'm still torn. I think, yeah, there's a part of me that thinks maybe Max, Lewis, Bottas, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe if the Red Bull is really what they think it is, and it looked good at Bahrain, yeah, it could be. It could be a Max Lewis.
Bottas will win by like 30 seconds or something.
Yeah, watch. It'll come out. Mercedes is sandbagging. Bottas will win. Lewis is disgruntled. Max will be in third. Lewis second. Yeah, that's probably how it. And then instantly all of our chases are going to be Mercedes, Lewis for the win, Bottas second,
After
Max
3
third.
races, it's the same old, same old. Yeah.
It'll be like your picks all last year. Lewis first, Bottas second, Max third. Yeah, done. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do it initially. I always come late to the party for actually giving up on that process.
I know.
And so,
yeah, my safe bet should be Lewis, Bottas, and then Max. That should be my safe fantasy GP pick. So we'll see what happens.
Should be.
Anyway, all right. Well, that does it for this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week. We do a race review of the first Grand Prix of the 2021 season. We'll see how rubbish my predictions are and how off I was on my season preview, which is a very good chance of that. I should be back home too, so back in the normal audio world. So until that time, be sure to stop by the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion. Just do it with decorum and civility. As always, thank you so much to all of our Patreon supporters out there. We could not and would not do this podcast without you. And if you're really liking the podcast, we're heading into a new season, you feel like supporting us, we'd absolutely be grateful. If you like the podcast, you can go over to iTunes, give us a good review over there, share the love with your friends and family. And next week, we'll be back to do it all over again. Until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.